The sun scorched the high desert, its relentless rays beating down on a young woman huddled against the splintered stump of a lone palm. Her only cover was a handful of brittle palm fronds, clutched desperately to her trembling frame. Her skin, slick with sweat, blood, and grime, bore the marks of a brutal ordeal. At 25, Clara Dawson's face carried the weight of years beyond her age. She curled tightly, knees pressed to her chest, her tangled hair falling like a veil over her haunted eyes. Her body told a story of terror and torment. Bruises bloomed dark across her arms, scratches crisscrossed her thighs, and a jagged gash on her ribs oozed into the parched earth. This wasn't her first brush with cruelty. Her husband, John, had crushed her spirit with every passing day. His jealousy was a wildfire, consuming reason. A glance at a shopkeeper, a word to a neighbor, and he'd accuse her of betrayal, his fists delivering punishment with growing ferocity. Each night, she whispered prayers for salvation. That morning, his rage had erupted beyond endurance. Seizing a fleeting moment, she fled their home, racing into the vast wilderness. Barefoot, clad in tattered rags, driven by desperation, she ran until her lungs screamed. Thorns tore at her soles, the sun seared her vision, but the taste of freedom was worth the agony. She thought she'd outrun her demon. She thought she'd broken free. But the desert had one more cruelty in store. A solitary rider blocked her path, his shadow looming like a storm cloud. He wasn't John, but the menace in his gaze mirrored her husband's. Clara's voice broke as she pleaded for mercy, her body quaking. But compassion was absent in him. The silence of the plains was broken only by her struggle. She fought, her hands clawed, her feet thrashed, but exhaustion betrayed her. He pinned her to the brittle grass, her cry echoing across the desolate expanse. No one heard, no one came. The sun glared down as her world shattered once more. When the nightmare ended, the stranger rode off, leaving her crumpled and bleeding. Clara crawled to the dead palm, dragging its sharp fronds over her like a frail shield. Her skin burned, her breaths came shallow, her mind drowned in despair and dread. She longed for the ground to swallow her whole, for the heavens to end her suffering. Every man she'd known had been a beast. Her husband, this stranger, both had turned her life into a waking horror. She pressed herself closer to the tree, tears mixing with the dust on her face, her lips forming a silent plea, not for rescue, but for oblivion. The desert stretched endlessly, its yellowed grasses swaying in the searing breeze. Time crawled, then a sound pierced the quiet, slow, deliberate hoofbeats approaching. Clara's heart thundered. She gripped the fronds tighter, her body shaking. Was it the rider returning? Had John tracked her down? A shadow fell across her. She dared to glance up. A man dismounted, older, his face etched with lines of sorrow and resolve. He stepped forward cautiously, the sunlight catching his weathered features. Clara's breath caught. Was this another predator, poised to shatter her further? Or could he be the one soul in this unforgiving land who might offer salvation? Samuel Carter didn't approach hastily. He paused, letting her see his empty hands, steady and unthreatening. He recognized the fragility of someone so deeply wounded. Clara's wide, tear-filled eyes met his, her body braced for flight or another blow. But Samuel's voice was soft, steady, a balm against her fear. "You're safe now. No one will hurt you again. I swear it." Something in his words, calm, not pitying, not demanding, eased her trembling for a moment. It was truth, unadorned. Slowly, he shrugged off his faded denim jacket, worn but sturdy, and knelt to drape it over her shoulders. Clara pulled it close, shielding her wounds, her shame. For the first time in hours, the sun's brutal glare felt less exposing. Her lips parted, but only a faint, broken sob escaped. Samuel didn't push her. He helped her stand, gentle as if she were porcelain, supporting her trembling frame as he led her to his horse. His ranch lay nearby, a solitary patch of land off the main trail, quiet enough to elude trouble. Inside the safety of his modest home, Clara's words finally spilled out, a torrent of pain. She spoke of John, her husband, whose jealousy was a relentless storm. Every interaction with another man sparked his fury, his blows landing harder each time. She'd fled because she knew another night in his house would be her last. Samuel listened, his face unjudging. He offered her water, bread, and sat near enough to ease her loneliness. When tears overwhelmed her, he let them fall. When she fell silent, he waited. Then, with eyes brimming with dread, She whispered, "Please, don't send me back. He'll destroy me." Samuel leaned back, stroking the stubble on his jaw. He'd known men like John, men who wielded jealousy like a weapon, who saw a wife as property, not a person. Such men never stopped unless stopped. The room was still, save for the soft tick of an old clock. Clara sat opposite, clutching his jacket, her gaze fixed on him, her life hanging on his decision. Would he shelter her, knowing the chaos that might follow, or return her to the man who'd already broken her? The next dawn, the ranch felt almost peaceful. Clara sat on the porch, wrapped in Samuel's jacket, watching the sun rise over the hills. For a fleeting moment, she dared to hope the terror was behind her. But tranquility in the Wild West is fleeting. Hoofbeats shattered the calm, dust swirling on the horizon. Samuel stepped outside, his face taut. He knew who approached before the rider appeared. John Dawson. He reined his horse to a halt before the porch, his eyes blazing, his voice a roar over the desert wind. "Clara, come here. You're coming home." Clara froze, gripping the jacket, her head shaking, her voice a faint "no." John's boots pounded up the steps. He seized her arm, wrenching a cry from her lips. His words cut like a blade. "Think you can run from me? Hide with this old man. The town will know what you are." Before Clara could respond, Samuel was there, his hand locking onto John's wrist, twisting until the younger man flinched. Samuel's voice was calm but ironclad. "That's enough. You won't touch her again." John shoved back, but Samuel, at 56, still carried the strength of a life spent taming the land. With one swift move, he sent John sprawling into the dirt. Clara's breath caught, her pulse racing as she watched her tormentor humbled. John's face flushed with rage and shame. He staggered up, spat, and jabbed a trembling finger at Samuel. "You'll pay for this. Both of you." He mounted his horse and galloped off, leaving a trail of dust and threats. The ranch fell silent, but the air was thick with tension. Samuel turned to Clara, his eyes steady yet troubled. He knew John wouldn't relent. There would be a reckoning. Clara buried her face in her hands, trembling. Samuel rested a hand on her shoulder, saying little, just present. "Sometimes, that's all someone needs. If this tale grips you, folks, you feel its raw edge. To ride further with Samuel and Clara, hit that subscribe button, it means more than you know. You won't want to miss what's coming, because John Dawson isn't done. Far from it. His next move will plunge them into deeper peril." For a day or two, the ranch was still. Clara busied herself with small tasks, sweeping the porch, tossing feed to the hens, anything to feel useful. Samuel watched her face slowly regain a hint of life. He almost dared to think John might let her be. But in a small town, gossip spreads like wildfire. John didn't return with violence this time. Instead, he went to town and let his lies loose. By dusk, the saloon buzzed with tales of Clara's infidelity. By morning, the blacksmith spoke of it as truth. By noon, even the preacher's wife clucked in disapproval. It wasn't mere talk, it was venom. John claimed he'd caught Clara in Samuel's arms, shouting to all that she'd disgraced him. Some laughed, some spat, others nodded as if they'd known all along. His worst threat was a vow. If the town had any honor, they'd hang her for her betrayal. When Samuel rode into town for supplies, the stares cut like knives. Folks he'd known for decades avoided his gaze. A few drifters muttered as he passed, one spat near his boot. Samuel stood tall, but his heart ached, not for himself, but for Clara, who'd suffered enough only to be smeared by lies. Back at the ranch, Clara felt the whispers too. A neighbor dropped off eggs, left them on the porch, and vanished without a word. Clara stood clutching the basket, feeling smaller than ever, her eyes welling. In a fragile voice, she asked Samuel if she'd ever escaped John's shadow. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice firm. "You're not alone. We'll end this." That night, as the lantern burned low, Samuel saddled his horse. He told Clara only one man could stop this madness, Sheriff Miller, known for fairness, if not speed. If they could lay bare the truth, the law might stand with Clara. The moonlight ride to town felt heavy. Clara clung to Samuel's shirt, praying with each hoofbeat that justice would outshine rumor. But as they neared the sheriff's office, a crowd gathered, their angry voices rising. One question burned. Would the sheriff back them, or would the town demand Clara's blood? Sheriff Miller stepped onto his porch, the crowd pressing closer, their shouts a brewing storm. Some called Clara a disgrace, others demanded punishment. Samuel stood resolute, Clara gripping his arm, facing the sea of fury. Miller raised a hand, his voice cutting through the chaos. I've known Samuel Carter half my life. He's no wife stealer. And I've seen Clara Dawson tonight, she's no traitor. She's a woman marked by scars. The crowd stirred, whispers rippling. Samuel stepped forward, his voice clear and unyielding. John put those scars on her. He's the one who beats and torments. Is that the man you'd defend? Clara raised her head, her voice soft but piercing. I never betrayed him. I only tried to live. The silence was heavy. Even the loudest voices faltered. Miller nodded, ordering deputies to fetch John. The law had turned. The truth carried weight. John Dawson was led away in irons, his protests fading as the crowd dispersed. Clara leaned against Samuel, tears falling, not just of pain, but of release. Days later, the ranch felt new. Clara helped Samuel fix a fence, the sun warm, the air crisp. She smiled faintly at his quiet jest, her first smile untainted by fear. In that vast, lonely land, two broken souls found solace in each other. Their story wasn't of youthful romance or easy love, it was of survival, trust, and standing tall against a crushing world. Perhaps that's the lesson. Love doesn't always come as expected. Sometimes it's a haven, sometimes courage, sometimes the quiet strength of someone who won't let you fall. And you, when life grinds you down, who'd you trust to offer a hand? When the time comes, would you stand for another as Samuel did? If this story moved you, give it a like, it keeps these Wild West tales alive. Subscribe to catch the next ride, because in these frontier